Welcome to PhD with Women on It Hack the Future. My name is Beata, and today's PhD Positivity Hack delivered will be by our guest, Sheba Wilson. Episode 46 starts here. Let me remind you this is a grassroots community that focuses on women on IT, an inclusive forum of women in technology, startups, and female leaders who are supported by men as well. And I bring heart to that hustle because empathy is my mojo, and empathy is critical when you are creating your own mastermind group. In today's episode, we are going to learn how to create your own mastermind group. Masterminds, personal board of directors, advisory boards are all becoming a key part of being a modern professional. Mastermind groups help like minded professionals get peer support, brainstorm ideas, and create accountability. They are typically goal oriented and success driven. If you've heard the term mastermind group and wondered what they were, how to join one, how to create one, or how to run one, and so on, then you need to join our discussion. This positivity hack is delivered by Sheba Wilson, who is the group director of human resources for a luxury hotel brand in Turks and Caicos Islands. During her career, Sheba has changed the function and impact of HR across the brand to support business goals and strategies while serving the needs and aspirations of over 600 employees. She has created a culture of learning and development, internal promotions, and consistently high employee retention rates across properties. Sheba is also an executive director of the John Maxwell team, a DISC certified trainer and consultant, and the CEO of Sheba Wilson Training Limited, a full service leadership training, coaching, and consulting company in the TCI. Join us as we discuss the benefits of creating your own mastermind group. Sheba, let me start with saying how lovely is to see you again. It's only online because last time we seen each other in October, I believe. And we had this beautiful location in front of beautiful sea, endless sea and beautiful sandy beaches. And we met because you are inspiring women, and not only women, people of color, people of minority, and all the team in your vicinity. And you told me some quite staggering numbers of women not involved in the leadership roles, but on the other hand, there is big change, big wave of change. And you're part of that change in TCI, as I recall, because you were also political leader at some stage. Now you're leading your own team as an HR, but also, as I recall, you had a podcast. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes, you're correct about the podcast. So I started a podcast in 2020, September 30th, 2020. It's called She Will Lead. It's a play on my name, of course, and LEAD stands for Live Every Day Above Defeat. So it focuses on basically the challenges that women in leadership face and how they can be empowered to overcome those challenges. I use that platform, which has also been picked up as a radio show here in Turks and Caicos by local telecommunications company Flow. So it's a sponsored radio show as well. She Will Lead. And we focus on leadership issues, but we also highlight the stories of women who have overcome challenging circumstances and who have attained a level of success in their careers, in politics, and basically any sphere of influence within society. So thank you once again for having me on Positivity Hack.
Sheba, it's a delight to have you, and I'm lucky to say that probably you will see me again sometime in March, April. But I wanted let's go back to the basics because you have got a website. We're gonna post a website shortly, so you can check yourself. But stay with us, bear with us for a second because we need to nail down the definition of mastermind group. Can you tell us what it is?
So, in my own words, a mastermind group is the coming together of a group of like minded individuals who are looking to grow and develop, especially in a specific area or based on a set of principles or a set of material through a book. So, it can be based on a specific book that you're studying together to use that to help you to achieve your goals. And a mastermind is usually persons that are in a leadership space, and sometimes persons who are colleagues within organizations or within specific industries. So you can really make it what you want it to be, but the main thing is that all persons are looking to grow and they have they're like-minded in terms of their growth and development and wanting to achieve a level of success, whatever that picture of success looks like for them individually.
So let's go to the definition from Wikipedia. A mastermind is a group, a peer-to-peer mentoring group, and to help members solve their problems with input and advice from the other group members. What I was really fascinated by, the fact was the concept was coined in 1925 by author Napoleon Hill in his book The Law of Success. So look, Chiba, isn't it fascinating that something developed and coined in 2000, 100 years ago, almost 100 years ago, can still be treasured and cherished, and the teachings can be developed all over the world?
Yes, it is quite fascinating, but the saying goes, there's nothing new under the sun. So I believe that principles, values, they remain the same over time, but we evolve as human beings. And so we may do things a bit differently than they originally were done. We may add some flair to it and have some new techniques as we evolve, as technology becomes more and more a part of our lives. So we may do things a bit differently, but I think the foundation, the principle remains the same from way back then when I believe it was called an alliance at that time. So yeah, I'm happy that, we're still able to converge and to share best practices and ideas and to have those brainstorming sessions so that we're able to learn from each other through life experiences and business best practices. Because, let's face it, we don't have all of the answers that we need on a day-to-day basis by ourselves. And that's why collaboration is so important in order for us to experience success.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, there is nothing new under the sun, and there's plenty of sun, I'm telling you, in TCI. We have got a lovely audience. Agata Bellon, great to see you back online, Beata, and hello, Sheba. Lovely to see you too, Agata. We've got Olga Vesina. Good evening, ladies. Great to see Sheba on this show. TCI, beautiful by nature. Up for your guest tonight, Beata. Thank you so much, Olga. That's a very good point because I didn't mention that beautiful by nature is actually a hashtag used by TCI to promote the beauty of the island. Right, let's promote the female way of doing mastermind group. What would you say is unique to the way you create your group? Because I noticed on your website you said your group is focusing on certain topics.
Yeah, so specifically for me, and you used the word earlier that's so important, empathy, right? And
Yeah.
that is important when you're looking to do a mastermind, because what you're essentially doing as a facilitator is you're putting together a set of material and then inviting persons to become a part of a mastermind. So you need to, first of all, recognize that this is not about you. It is simply a platform that you're using to help to grow and develop other individuals. And what I do in my masterminds is I facilitate, meaning that I steer the direction of the conversations, ask the questions that will help persons to be able to get to the answers that many times are already within them, and then to get them to kind of open up, because it is a safe environment, it is a confidential environment, and so persons have to be free to share their experiences, right? Because that is really the best part of the mastermind. The best part of the mastermind is being able to learn through the experiences of others, and so we need persons to be able to share freely what they have encountered, how they overcame challenges, what their habits are to help them to get to that level of success. And so it's important to foster that environment where persons feel that it is a safe space, that no response is a stupid response, right? And no question is a stupid question, because we're all learning and growing together. And what I love about masterminds is the transformation that you see in the lives of the individuals who are a part of it. That for me as a facilitator, that is the best part, because when you see the growth and you see them going on to achieve the goals that are set at the onset of a mastermind, that really is gratifying to know that you had a small part to play and being able to bring those persons together and help them to attain their picture of success.
I love it, Sheba. I am thinking about the way we started. I used to run the Geek Girls Carrots organization back in Poland. And we had lots of meetings all over the world, including Poland, and also in Tokyo. I facilitated creation of community in Sydney. And the funny bit was, we had some men attending our meetings, and they said, well, why is it only about girls? And why do you want to have, why don't you have like, boys cucumbers meetings, and all these silly things? And you really touched upon a very important topic, and I wanted to ask you about how to build the sense of safe environment, because that was the purpose of Women on It. That was the purpose of my previous organization, Geek Girls Carrots. How do you go about building that safer environment, that fact that everybody feels secure when they are sharing their vulnerabilities?
So I think one of the first steps in your mastermind meeting is establishing what the rules of engagement are. You need to make that clear from the onset that, this is a confidential environment. So what is shared in this space doesn't leave the space. So that is important for participants to understand at the very onset. Also, making sure that we respect each other's time. So masterminds are a specific time. So if it's a weekly mastermind for a 8-week period, then you would meet at a specific time each week. And so one of the things that needs to be communicated at the onset is also respect for time, meaning that you need to show up to the masterminds on time. And if you're unable to attend, to give advance notice and apology ahead of the session, so that the facilitator is able to relay that information to the group. That shows respect for the members of the group. And then also making sure as the facilitator that you control the flow of the conversation, so that no one person is dominating the conversation, because the purpose of the mastermind is to get everyone involved. So there has to be involvement, and people have to feel as if it's an inclusive environment, right? Which means that we have to respect the diversity of the members of the group, because all of us are not the same, and that is what makes the world such a great place, right? Because people are unique and they bring a different set of personality traits and their way of doing things. So all of that collectively, when we collaborate and we work together, it makes everything that we do a lot more creative, a lot more meaningful, purposeful, and also more successful because, like I said earlier, no one person has all the answers. And so we have to value the input of other persons. So controlling the flow of the communication, of the responses, making sure that everyone has an opportunity to share, that is also very important. And in addition to that, making sure that we set some housekeeping rules in terms of distractions. So placing cell phones on silent or turning them off so that you're not distracted during the conversation. A mastermind is usually an hour and a half. Some people do 2 hours, but that is a set aside time for you to be in a space where you're able to share, to allow your creative juices to flow, to be able to learn, which requires you to listen to the stories of other persons, the experiences of other persons. And so you need to be in a headspace where you're engaged and you're not distracted. So make sure that participants understand the importance of dedicating that time, that set aside time for the purpose of the mastermind, free themselves from any things that would distract them and fully immerse and be engaged in the actual mastermind.
Sheba, I wanted to ask you the about the housekeeping rules. How do you go about if somebody is breaking these rules?
So, tactfully, what I do at the beginning of the mastermind each week is I remind participants of what the housekeeping rules are. So before we actually dive into our mastermind session, I would go through the housekeeping rules just to remind them to switch off their cell phones and to make sure that everyone is ready to engage. And so if there is a distraction, I would gently remind that you need to switch off cell phones. And if it's a situation where it's repetitive and you're finding that one or two persons have a habit of not basically obeying the rules. I don't like saying it that way, but obeying the rules. Having a sidebar conversation with them to, find out what is actually happening, because it may be a situation where maybe they have young children or they have a responsibility at that particular time that is kind of conflicting. So having that conversation and then seeing what could possibly be done to help them so that it is not a distraction. And then sometimes you may find that it's just not the right time for that person to be in a mastermind group, although they may want to be in it. So having that sidebar conversation from a place of empathy, understanding, and seeing what the best solution is to help them through that so that it isn't a distraction to the remaining members of the group.
And how to run an effective mastermind group?
Well, the facilitator, you're responsible for running the mastermind, which means that if your mastermind is based on, say, a book, for instance, you need to study the material. You need to study it because you're the one that's posing pointed questions. And so your questions have to have the impact that, it's going to bring about success. Right? So you need to know the material. You need to be able to ask the right questions so persons can get to the right answers for themselves. And so that's why it's so important for you to set aside time on a weekly basis where you're spending time going through material, preparing yourself, right? Because I think the worst experience a participant can have in a mastermind is to have a facilitator that comes unprepared, that there's no agenda, that it's not organized, there isn't a proper flow. And it then makes members feel as if it is a waste of their time and effort. So you have to be fully committed as the facilitator in order for the members to then feed off that energy and be fully committed to the mastermind as well. So that is a bit of advice that I would give to a facilitator, to be prepared, to be fully committed to the mastermind, to make sure that you're not making it about you, right? Because it's not about you, it's about you helping these persons to be able to attain success, their picture of success. So you do that by basically steering the conversation. So make sure that you're not dominating the conversation, right? You have a responsibility to make sure that members are not one person dominating the conversation, but also as the facilitator, don't answer all the questions yourself and take up all the time speaking about your experiences. What I prefer to do is allow the group to share their experiences. And sometimes a member may ask you if you've had an experience with a particular challenge that you would like to share, and then you can share in that way. But as the facilitator, your job is really to bring out the best in the group. It's not for you to basically shine. Yes, it's not about that. It's about the members of the group and them sharing their ideas so that they can get the results that they desire.
So let's stop shining here, Sheba, and let's go to a question from Agatha Bellon. And she is asking about your quotation, masterminds are specific time. So she's asking, so are masterminds over a finite schedule? Sheba, you mentioned 8 weeks a moment ago.
So it depends, right? It depends on really what you're hoping to get out of a mastermind and what material you may be studying, or whether or not it is agreed with a group that we're going to converge a mastermind that is going to be 3 months, 6 months. It really depends on what the goal is in a particular mastermind. So usually for my masterminds, they are based on a specific set of materials. So if we're doing a mastermind, say on a growth mindset, I would sit and plan, okay, how much time would we need to be able to go through this process that would bring about the transformation that is needed for persons to be able to attain their goals. And so I would decide, okay, then this mastermind needs to be 3 months, or it may be a book. And maybe the book has 8 chapters or 6 chapters. So if that's the case, then we would study a chapter a week. And that would mean that the mastermind would be 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 10 weeks, depending on how much material it is, whether or not you may need to spend 2 weeks dealing with a particular chapter because it may not make sense to try and merge everything into one session and not get the full impact of the study. So it really depends. There's no hard and fast rule about how long it should be. It depends on what you're trying to achieve and how long you believe the members would need to go through that process and get the results that they desire. Because one of the important things about the mastermind is setting those goals, having each individual set the goals for themselves that they want at the end of that mastermind. And so that is important also. So you have to take all of those factors into consideration when you're determining the length of the actual mastermind.
We have another question from In Love and in Pain. Here is her question. Oh, sorry. We have a glitch here. Let's go. Hello, Beata and Sheba. Can you give me some tips how to facilitate a group? I'm a bit shy. If you're shy, can you still facilitate group, Sheba?
I think you can. In all honesty, I'll share candidly. The first time that I did a mastermind group, I'm not a shy person, so I wasn't shy, but I did have fears because it was my first time doing it. But I'll tell you this. If you're interested in facilitating a mastermind, the best practice that you can get is to actually be a participant in a really good mastermind. So you can find out from maybe persons that have participated in other masterminds what would be a good mastermind to join, and become a part of a mastermind so that you get the experience of how it actually works. And then you may also find that you may want to tweak some things based on that experience. So I think that's a good place to start. So if you want to facilitate, the best way to prepare yourself for that would be to actually go through the process of being a participant in a mastermind.
Mm. Excuse me. We'll cut this out later on. Okay, next question. Very sorry. You mentioned a good, have an example of good mastermind. Can you recommend some?
Well, I'm a John Maxwell team executive coach, trainer, and speaker, and so we have over 30,000 coaches worldwide, and masterminds. They're a part of what we do. And so, if you're living in a specific area and you would want to do an in-person mastermind, what I would recommend is that you can go on Google and Google a John Maxwell team coach in your area, and then you would be able to see their website and see what they have scheduled, and then find out how you can become a part of that, how you can join a mastermind. That's what I would recommend, because I say that because I can trust that John Maxwell team coaches are trained to facilitate masterminds, and I also know that the material that they'll be using as the basis of the mastermind it's going to be life-changing, because it's based on the time-tested principles of John Maxwell himself, who's a leadership guru. And so I would recommend that, as well as I would say to you, speak with colleagues and friends that you know have participated in masterminds, or if you don't know, ask them, have you participated in a mastermind? Ask at work, ask your leaders at work, have you participated in a mastermind, or have you facilitated a mastermind? And you may be surprised to know that maybe in your own organization there may be leaders who facilitate masterminds outside of work, and that would be an opportunity for you to join. So there are a number of ways. And then if price is not an option for you, I mean, there are some high ticket mastermind items out there, like Tony Robbins and so many others that have masterminds on a regular basis. So it really depends on, what your budget is, what your timing is, and how much time you want to invest in a mastermind to decide what will work for you. But those are some of the ways that you can help you to make that decision.
Or they can reach out to Sheba Wilson, who will do the mastermind session for you in Love and in Pain. Right, excellent answer. Thank you so much, Sheba. I was wondering, what is the difference between like a mastermind session versus coaching? I mean, there is some similarities, but there are some differences. Maybe you could ponder on
Yeah.
that.
So with coaching can be one-on-one, or it can be group coaching. And coaching is based on the individual, and the coach would go through a similar process to a mastermind, where you identify, okay, what are the goals that you're setting, and then holding you accountable. So a coach is an accountability partner, and each week that you meet with a coach, there were certain things that you would have had to do, and then when you come back, you give an update. And if you're stuck, they ask you questions, right? Coaches ask great questions to get you to the answers that you need. And so it's kind of similar to a mastermind, in the sense that a facilitator may use a coaching technique to pull out the information for the discussion, for the dialogue with the group. But I think the difference between coaching and a mastermind is that the mastermind is more so of a think tank, is more of the sharing of experiences between those individuals that gives them the answers that they need to challenges. It's not so much about the one-on-one coach asking you a specific question and giving you assignments to come back and see how you're progressing. The mastermind, I think the beauty of the mastermind lies really in the shared experiences, because some of the benefits of a mastermind, you can end up collaborating with persons within your mastermind group because of the value that they bring, and you can learn and grow from each other and help each other in terms of business best practices, and maybe end up becoming partners. I've seen things like that happen as well. So I think for the mastermind, really, it's more about the members of the mastermind. They bring the value to the mastermind. So being selective in terms of who you're inviting to be a part of the mastermind, because as I said earlier, it's important for them to be like-minded in the sense that they're all looking to learn and to grow, right? And so I think that's the major difference. I think coaching is more one-on-one. Even in group coaching, sometimes it becomes kind of challenging because people need that dedicated one-on-one sessions where you can spend more time helping to pull out the responses so they have those aha moments. Whereas with the mastermind, the discussion, the dialogue between each others can give you the answers that you need for you to then go and implement.
Right. So, how do you find ideal members?
So sometimes I hand select. I would call persons that I know within my local community, within my sphere of influence, who I know could benefit from a particular mastermind, and I would invite them to be a part of it. And then additionally, if depending on what the mastermind is about. So one of the masterminds that I do quite regularly and probably several times throughout the year is one on the 15 invaluable laws of growth. And that really works well for persons in their careers who are looking to grow and not quite sure why they're stuck. So targeting persons that want to grow in their careers, but for whatever reason, maybe they're unsure about what it is they need to be doing. They don't really have a growth strategy. So finding persons like that who could benefit from it, and bringing those persons together with leaders who may be where they need to be, to balance it out and to be able to create an environment where everyone can learn together. So it's really targeted, depending on what type of mastermind you're putting on. So cold calls to persons that could benefit. Also using social media to advertise and being specific about what the mastermind is actually for, and then doing consultation with persons to decide whether or not they would be right for the mastermind group at that particular time. I think that's very important, because sometimes you may have a mastermind group where it starts out with maybe 15 members, and then when you're on to week 2 or 3, maybe 5 persons are there. So what I learned from that is to be a bit more strategic in terms of the selection process, to make sure that those are persons that are ready and can benefit from the particular study that you're doing at that time.
Well, Sheba, I've got so many questions, but I need to let our audience speak. Marianne Madeira is here, and she's asking, Sheba, good to see you in PhD. Can you tell us about your first mastermind group? And then maybe I'll add another question. What was the key learnings from that first group?
So my first mastermind group was actually on the 15 invaluable laws of growth. And I did it with a number of my work colleagues, a number of our employees within Grace Bay Resorts from various properties. And I targeted persons that I knew wanted to grow in their careers. So that was the purpose of the actual mastermind. And it was a free mastermind. There was no charge. I just did it because I believe that it could be beneficial to those persons. And I had about 15 persons in that group. And, looking back at it, I think what I'm most happy about from that group is that several of them have been promoted. Several of them have been promoted, one to a senior leadership position, just December of last year. So that's the power and the beauty of a mastermind, right? You just never know the transformation that an individual can get from being a part of a mastermind.
Well done, sis. Great on your achievement and making sure that people are at their best potential. One question that was always on my mind when I was running Women on IT and Women in Tech movements back in Poland, charge versus no charge. People usually don't stick with us if they are not charged. They don't see the value of what they are getting.
Right.
So would you agree with that or would you disagree?
Yes, I agree. I think, even if it's a minimal charge, I think there should be a charge because you're right. When a person invests resources in something, they're more likely to stick with it because they have made an investment in that, right? But there are also times where people pay money and they still don't commit. And I think that has more to do with them, not being ready. They're not, they know that they need to do something, but mentally they are not ready to fully commit to their growth process. But in my experience, when you do free, a lot of times persons do not fully engage. They show up at some sessions, don't show at others, or they don't show at all. And so I think it's important for anyone who's serious about their growth, they're going to be willing to make some level of an investment in their growth. And so it's important to attach a cost to it. Now, there will be times where you may have a particular person who can benefit from it, but they may not be in a position financially to pay the cost. And you have to determine, using your best judgment, whether or not you're willing to give them an opportunity to be a part of that without payment or maybe a reduced payment. That is something that you would personally have to decide. But I quite agree that there should be a fee.
Right. So how to produce that accountability feeling apart from I want my money back?
The accountability. So that is why it's so important to, at the onset, have those individuals set their SMART goals. So you're joining the mastermind. What do you want to be the outcome from this mastermind? What are the goals that you're setting? Making sure that they're specific, making sure that they can be measured and that they are achievable, right? And realistic, and that we're attaching the right timelines to goals, right? Because when we're determining what our goals are, we also have to be realistic in the sense of how long it's going to take us to accomplish those goals. So doing that exercise at the beginning of the mastermind so that everyone within the group, they have a SMART plan, and then that is their measurement to know whether or not it's being effective. So I think that's very important. Otherwise, you're just blindly going through the motion and with no outcomes, right? Why are you doing the mastermind? What are you hoping to achieve? You need to know that. And so that helps with the accountability and holding yourself accountable, and also the members of the group being your accountability partner and holding you accountable, and also being a source of encouragement to you, right? Celebrating your victories when you have a victory, and also when you experience defeat, being there to encourage you and to support you and to see how you can pivot, having those discussions in the mastermind setting. So that is important to ensure that people are accountable and that they are committed, and in that environment that fosters that level of growth.
Well, it's time to remind you, ladies and gentlemen, this is a grassroots community that focuses on women on IT, an inclusive forum of women in technology, startups, and female leaders, just like Sheba today. You've got unique opportunity to ask her questions for another 20 minutes. Sheba will be with us. But there is so many questions about how to create your own mastermind group. I think the very important ones we need to focus now is how how to communicate. And I think also another one very important factor is what everybody is enjoying, making sure that everybody enjoys it and shows some gratitude. So let's focus on communication, because communication is not only about speaking, right?
Mhm. Communication is also about listening. Actually, listening and communication is probably twice as important as speaking, right? Because
Yep.
taking it in the context of the mastermind in particular, if you're doing all the talking, it means that you're not learning, right? You're not
Mm.
receiving any information. And so it's important for you to also actively listen. And what I mean by that is you're listening to the shared stories and experiences, and you're listening to the best practices, right? So that you can have takeaways from the mastermind, from your peers that you're learning and growing with. But if you're constantly talking and you're not listening, you will have no takeaway. So you're not growing. And what that also does is if one person is constantly dominating the conversation, it causes everyone else to lose interest in the mastermind. So it's so important for it to be balanced, for the communication to be balanced, where everyone has an opportunity to share and everyone has an opportunity to hear and learn, right? And I think that that is so important to not just masterminds, but in life generally, that we need to actively listen. Many times we listen to respond when we should be listening to understand. And that is so important to effective communication. So, big part of masterminds and a big part of our lives generally, be better listeners.
Be better listeners. Amen, sister. I've got another question for you, Shiva, from Olga Vasina. Great. So I follow who this is for, but is there a lot of homework involved? You mentioned setting goals, etc. Is that written work or more contemplative?
It's both. It requires you to do a lot of introspection and to reflect and to really fine tune what it is that you want to accomplish. But it also has to be written. If it's not written, it doesn't exist, right? Because let's face it, we think about a lot of things throughout the day. But if we don't write it down, if we don't map out a plan, how are we really going to hold ourselves accountable? And so it goes beyond just contemplating. It also means that you have to write it out. It has to be a plan. It has to be a smart plan. And then you have to hold yourself accountable, and the other members of the group will hold you accountable as you hold them accountable. So that's the only way that you're really going to work towards those goals. If you document it, if you make sure that you're working that plan, and then you're having those accountability checks and checking your progress, seeing where you're at, and also assessing whether or not you need to make any changes, because that is also a part of our plans as well, right? Sometimes things shift and we need to make some changes as well. So it's important to recognize that sometimes you have a plan, but you may need to tweak certain components in order to be able to accomplish those goals.
As the great leader said, plans are nothing, planning is everything. Agata Bellon says, not surprised. There are so many questions. Sheba rocks. Master woman, mastermind. There you go. Bravo. I let's focus on the communication and also the homework involved. Great question from Olga. And how about the mastermind group facilitator? How is she going to take notes of all these plans? Do they have to, or do they just ask and validate and believe whatever was said?
I think if you really want, if your goal is for the persons that are a part of your mastermind to be successful, I think it's really important for there to be an actual plan, and that plan is shared right? So one of the sessions in your mastermind, preferably the first and second session, should involve the discussion about your smart plans, and then the presentation of those smart plans. Because just as in business, when we plan, when we strategize, right, we document that plan, and then we assign certain portions of that to specific individuals, and we attach timelines to it, and we break those goals down into small steps that we can take to be able to action them, and then we update what our progress is. That is the way a plan works. And it's no different in your personal life, right? And I think when a person decides to be a part of a mastermind, their intent is probably that they want to do something different. They want their lives to be different. Otherwise, they wouldn't make the investment in a mastermind. So yes, there's homework. Yes, the plan needs to be written and it needs to be shared with the group. And yes, there's homework, but the homework is introspective. It's that deep work that you need to do for yourself, asking yourself some questions that help you to come up with the responses that you need to be able to move forward. And then when you're stuck, the beauty is that you come to the mastermind weekly session and you're able to share what you've encountered, and you can have persons there who may have had a similar circumstance in the past, and they're able to say to you, well, this is how I navigated that. And maybe you can try this or you can try that. And then you get the clarity that you need and the answers that you need so that you're able to implement and move forward and assess where you're at as you progress. So I think it's very, very important to do the homework if you want the mastermind to be effective, and to make sure that the SMART plan is a part of the process.
You mentioned as well, Sheba, we evolve as technology becomes more a part of our lives. So I wonder, can you create a mastermind group on Facebook, or does it have to always be face-to-face meetings?
Doesn't have to always be face to face. I've done virtuals actually throughout 2020. I did virtual masterminds, and most of 2021 I did virtual masterminds because of COVID. And so while it is a bit different virtually, you can use technology to do breakout rooms. You can pair 2 or 3 people together to have discussion on a particular question, and then they can come back to the group and share what they discuss or what their key takeaways were from the discussion. So you can get really creative using technology to host your virtual masterminds. And then if you prefer to do in person, well, you have the option to do in person, whatever your COVID protocols are being observed. You can use Facebook. There are Facebook groups where you can go live in the group and have guests join by your members who are a part of the mastermind join via Zoom or StreamYard or whatever platform you're using to go live with. That's another way that you can do it. But there are so many different platforms these days that are available to us. So there's no reason why you can't incorporate technology and use that. Some mastermind groups also use Slack, to discuss with each other throughout the course of the day, and encourage each other during the week, and to share their goals and their wins and all of that stuff. So there's lots of technology that you can attach to your masterminds.
So would you say, Sheba, and this is a question for our lovely In Love and in Pain, would it be a good suggestion for her, because she's shy, not to call it mastermind, so she doesn't have to be overwhelmed with the title? She can call it In Love and in Pain's group and act as a mastermind without calling it actual mastermind group.
Yes, you can call it whatever you want. The concept is the same, but if you're comfortable with calling it something other than a mastermind, that's quite fine. I know people who get really, really creative and come up with, really nice phrases, catchy phrases for their mastermind groups, and they don't use the word mastermind at all. And so there's no hard and fast rule about what you need to call it. As we saw earlier, it went from being alliance, and people call it advisory boards, and they have so many names for basically the same concept, which is converging together with like-minded individuals, brainstorming, and being able to come up with solutions, creative problem solving solutions. So you can call it whatever you're comfortable with calling it, as long as you know what the goal of the mastermind is, as long as you know who you're targeting, because you want it to be effective, right? And what I would say to you is just be yourself, right? As a facilitator, what your strength is your unique personality, what you bring to the table. And so
Mm.
I wouldn't try to be anyone else. You don't need, if you're not a naturally assertive personality, that's fine. You still can be effective. Find your level of comfort. And the first time may be a bit rocky, but I can tell you one of the things that I do and I did this from the onset, is I always do a survey following the mastermind, because the feedback helps you. You can use that to tweak as you grow in your masterminds.
That's it. We are going to join an In Love and in Pain mastermind group, however it's going to be called. We support you, sister. So we definitely want to see that happen. You have to stick to it and be accountable, right?
Yes.
There you go. Now, let's go to the topic of gratitude. Gratitude is an attitude. We have in production Racy, who told me we need to talk about that. How important is gratitude in creating, shaping, molding that mastermind group, Sheba?
I think gratitude is just so important in life generally. One of the things that I constantly remind myself of is that it is very near impossible for you to be unhappy if you practice gratitude. So even when challenges come your way and maybe you're having a difficult day, if you would just take a deep breath and focus on something that you have to be grateful for, it automatically changes your mood, right? And so when you think
Mm,
about a mastermind group, and you're maybe you had a rough day and you have to attend this mastermind group and you're not really feeling it. You feel like, oh gosh, I don't want to be bothered. I don't really feel like being around anyone today. Simply saying to yourself, you know what? I'm grateful for the members of the mastermind group, because last week I was able to share this idea and I got so many takeaways that I could use to tweak that and to make it work for me. So just putting yourself in that space of being grateful for something, no matter how small it is, it instantaneously changes your mood. And so not just for masterminds, even as the facilitator of a mastermind, being grateful that you have that opportunity to be able to host a group of persons and help them to grow and develop and steer conversation so that they get out of that mastermind what they intended to get. And so that is something to be grateful for, right? Because people don't have to allow you that place and space in their lives. And so just to be able to do that small bit to help them on their journeys is something that you should be grateful for. So I think we can always find something to be grateful for if we would just pause, take a deep breath, and truly reflect on all the things that we do have versus all of the challenges and the things that we may not have.
Well, it's only I'm left with one very important quotation of Maya Angelou, who has been chosen as a first woman, black woman, to be chosen on the coin in America. And she says, if you don't like something, change it.
Yeah.
If you can't change it, change your attitude.
Mhm.
Shiva, now question: if you were to choose a book to study and implement with the group, which one would it be?
I think, one of the books that I wish that I had read earlier on in life is As a Man Thinketh. it is such a small book. It is written by James Allen, but it deals with our thought life. And I think that in my work in human resources and even as a coach, what I see over and over again is these negative thought patterns that really hold people back from their true potential. And everything really starts in your mind. And so I think if I were to choose one piece of material that I would create a mastermind around, it would be As a Man Thinketh.
Fabulous. And what advice would you give to females to help their career or start entrepreneurial journey?
So the first thing I would say is get clear about what it is that you really want. Because again, I see it a lot. I work in human resources. So many times people, they come to have conversations with their managers and they're looking to their managers to tell them what's next for them. So what I usually say to persons is you need to have that clarity for yourself. So you need to spend some time with yourself and determine where it is that you would like to be, where you see yourself, what do you truly want for your career? And once you've determined that, then you need to have the conversation with your manager or your senior leader to say, this is what I aspire to. What do I need to do to prepare myself? And what can you or the organization do to support me in getting there? So I think that's very important for anyone who's looking to grow in their career, that you need to have that clarity about what it is that you desire. Don't put your success and your future in the hands of someone else. You need to know for yourself, and your leaders are going to support you, but you need to get clear about that. And then what I would also say is make sure that you find sponsors within your organization. People who are going to call your name in rooms when you're not there, or rooms that you don't yet have access to. It's so important for you to have those sponsors within your organization who know your work, who know your worth and what you bring to the table. And they are the ones who are going to call your name when opportunities present itself. So it's important to make sure that you're making those connections within your organization.
So none of us are able to achieve success without some help along the way. Is there a particular person who you are grateful towards who helped you get to where you are?
Oh gosh, there are so many people, right? When I think of my personal life, the first person that comes to mind is my mom, because of course, she has a lot to do with the woman that I am today. She raised me and she continues to be my best friend. And so she's truly important. But in terms of career, I've had several mentors. And I must say, as a female, most of my mentors have been men. And I'm truly grateful for that because, I have so many male mentors and colleagues that support me. But if I had to choose one person, I would say that it is my current managing director, who I have worked with now for 11 years. I started out as his executive assistant. His name is Thierry Grandsire, and he has been instrumental in my growth. I can share this story that, years ago when I decided that I wanted to transition to HR, I sat in his office and had that conversation, and he has supported me. He supported me, even though I was his assistant, and I think I made a great assistant. He said, you know what, I'm going to support you, whatever the organization can do to help you in terms of study. And then I got promotion after promotion. And each of those promotions, it was because he saw in me that I was ready for those next steps, and he supported me. And so I'm really grateful for him. And I think one of the things that I've learned from him is to lead with my heart, to lead with my heart. A lot of times leaders have big egos, and even when his ego comes through sometimes, what I love about him is he is so humble. He comes and he apologizes, and he taught me that you're never too big to recognize that you did something wrong and to go back and apologize and to make that right. And so those are two of the things that I learned from him. Lead with your heart and never be too big to apologize.
Well, I hope Terry Glenside is watching us tonight. If not, we'll definitely mention him because he's worthy of mentioning because we love males who are supporting us uh, in getting the position we need or in seeing that potential. So I'm very happy that you were supported by so many people and especially a male leader in your organization. Before we step into the next week episode and we announce it, I would like to ask you, are you working on any exciting new projects right now?
Yes, actually. So I collaborated on a book, Voices for Leadership, and that is going to be published by March of this year. So I wrote a
Oh,
chapter in the book, and the chapter is based on overcoming adversity. I shared a bit of my personal story with adversity from through the lens of being a widow and how I overcame that and how that can be applied in the leadership space. But in addition to that, I'm also working on my own book. But I'm not going to share too much about that because I don't like to talk too much about things before it's off the ground. But you can continue to follow my social media handles so that you'll be updated as things progress. But hopefully that book will be published within this year.
well, if it's this year, we'll be happy to invite you, Sheba, again and have you on PhD, and we can
Thank
announce this
you.
book launch with happiness and with some accountability, right? We have 11 months
Yes,
left.
yes.
There you go, fingers
Hold me
crossed.
accountable.
Absolutely. Can you please give us your favorite life lesson quote?
My favorite life lesson quote is when I am tempted to complain, remind me that oaks grow strong in contrary winds and diamonds are made under pressure. And I remember the first time I saw that quote, it was in 2013. And a year later, I was facing a disruption in life, stage 4 prostate cancer, with my husband, God rest his soul. And that quote carried me. Yeah, it really carried me through some of the darkest times of my life. And what I love about that quote is that there's this component of gratitude, right? You
Mm,
can complain because things are not what you would like them to be. Or you could put yourself in the frame of mind that I'm going through this and there is something on the other side of this that is going to make it worth it in some way. And so, like the diamond in the rough, it has to go through that process. I have to go through processes for various stages of my life, but on the other side of that is this bright shiny diamond. And so that is one of my favorite life quotes. And anytime I have to face any adverse circumstance, I refer to that quote and it really helps me to push through.
let's say that quote again.
So the quote is, when I am tempted to complain, remind me that oaks grow strong in contrary winds and diamonds are made under pressure.
Fabulous quotation. Thank you so much, Shiva. I hope our production caught it. Well, I think it's time for our favorite question. Imagine the pandemic is over and you don't need PCR tests, you don't need all that vaccine certification, whatever, and you can choose any place and any person to have private breakfast with. Who would you choose and where would you go to?
You know, there are so many people that I could choose, but at this particular time in my life, because one of the areas that I really want to get better at is my finances, um, I would choose Dave Ramsey. And I would choose him because of his personal story and his wealth of knowledge in the financial space and how he teaches people to be debt free and to build wealth. And so for this particular season of my life, I would have breakfast with him and pick his brain and get all of the nuggets of wisdom that I could possibly get to make sure that I am hitting those targets that I set for myself financially.
And you would go to?
I would stay right here in the beautiful by nature Turks and Caicos Islands because there's no place on earth that's better than here.
Oh, I agree, Sheba. It's so true. I mean, these beautiful, beautiful beaches and lovely sunshine. I'm missing it a lot, especially now that we are suffering quite a lot of rain. But gratitude is attitude. We have to focus on the positives, and that's it, unfortunately, for this week. But next week, the positive is we are going to meet Priyanka Komala, and we are going to talk about STEM is a default choice. It's a default choice in India, in Asia, and we are trying to change that and also spread the awareness of STEM being at the forefront of our future. I mean, who wouldn't like to be online now? I don't think there is any person on the planet where we can enjoy a little joy of missing out, JOMO, as opposed to FOMO, which is fear of missing out. But definitely we can enjoy another positivity hack delivered next week. That's it, number 46 of the live stream. Thank you very much, Sheba Wilson, to stay updated and ensure you never miss another positivity hack delivered. Follow Woman on it and turn on notifications to be alerted once a video has been released. Tell people and they may forget, show them they may remember, but involve them and they will understand. That's especially words of wisdom to in love and in pain. We are looking forward to that mastermind group of yours. Now, let's focus on the positive, and the positive get more positive. Sometimes you need a little crisis to get your adrenaline flowing and help you realize your potential. As Janet will say, today is your day to hack the future, hack the positivity you want. See you next week. Enjoy your gratitude.